Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to Keep Indiana Learning. My name is Tim Arnold. I'm very excited to be here today with two of my fellow innovation coaches, Amy Stevens and my co-host, Brenny Coomer. And this is for episode 2 in our dual book study discussing AI in education. In this book study series, we'll dig into books Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick, and today, AI for Educators by Indiana educator and author Matt Miller. Whether you're here with us live or you join us later on the Keep Indiana Learning YouTube channel, we are here to explore these two wonderful books because we know as AI becomes increasingly integrated into our society, it's crucial for educators to understand its potential to enhance teaching and learning and be aware of its limitations. So we're hoping that through the process of these 10 episodes, we can help you explore practical AI tools, strategies to enhance learning, the ethical implications related to AI and data privacy considerations, future-proof skills related to AI, and methods to leverage the collaborative intelligence of AI. Wow, that's a pretty big bill there, but we're going to get it done. In our dual book study format, we'll take sections of each book to discuss. Today, we're looking at chapters 1 and 2 from AI for Educators by Matt Miller. Before we dive into all that, let's do some introductions. Amy, would you like to start us off?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Brenny and Tim, for having me as a guest. I oftentimes look forward to just these magical moments of getting together and having a great conversation. Again, my name is Amy Stevens. I am a K-5 Project Lead the Way STEM teacher at Tri Elementary in Strawn, Indiana. Outside of my corporation duties, I am an innovation coach with Brenny and Tim for Keep Indiana Learning, as well as an Apple Distinguished Educator, and just truly enjoying my time this year back on the Indiana University campus as an Armstrong educator.
Brenny, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm excited to be here again today. I'm Brenny Coomer, and I'm in Columbus, Indiana, where I'm the Assistant Director of Educational Technology. I do a lot in my role. I feel like all of us in education wear a lot of different hats all of the time, but mainly ed tech, accessibility, and UDL are things that I'm super passionate about. I'm also the president-elect for Indiana Connected Educators and a Google certified trainer. And I'm super excited to talk with these lovely human beings here today about AI.
And again, my name is Tim Arnold. I'm a district e-learning specialist with Richmond Community Schools. I spent 26 years as a 7 through 12 social studies educator. I am an innovation coach with Keep Indiana Learning. I'm an Indiana University Distinguished Jacobs Educator, and I serve as a member of the HEC board. And when we're not all three doing all those things, we're here with you talking about AI. So as we hop into chapters 1 and 2 from AI for Educators, our real focus is going to be on chapter 2, but I love this book so much and the work that Matt did to put it together and get it to us really early in the process that I want to make sure we have a chance to mention some things from chapter 1 that resonated with us. And right out of the gate, Matt is very clear in his intention to say that AI is going to change the world as we know it soon. And so part of our job is to prepare students for that world. And that means we're going to be doing some changing too. And that's one of the things we're going to be talking about today. Key to that, and I think central to that for teachers, another topic we'll look at today is going to change the kinds of assignments we give and how we provide feedback. And I think that gets to the nuts and bolts of what we're doing here. And then the third thing that he mentions is we can't always look at the world through our today glasses. And I think one of our members today have some of these tomorrow glasses. We got to use some of those tomorrow glasses to look at the world that we're going to inherit and that our kids and students are going to inherit. Yeah. So with that, I'll open it up to you two to see, is there anything else from chapter 1 that you really wanted to make mention of?
I just really love this idea that Matt has about connecting. I mean, he knows his audience, as educators, we love to storytell, we love visual, but we're also, just highly passionate and just excited. And so the way that he kicks off the book and uses the Today classes, as well as mentions, like teachers meet the AI world, and he gets right out the gate about, this is, if you're worried about your job, let me just take it and inhale and exhale. It's going to be okay. I'm going to walk you through this. And I just thought he did a really nice job of introducing it, especially just defining it, talking about it, giving some really great points that as we lead into this next chapter of chapter 2, where, as you mentioned, it had the meat and potatoes. I felt ready. I felt like I knew what AI, truly looked like. And I don't know if you guys caught, did you see that he even stated the date, the year that he wrote the book? Like, keep in mind, if you're reading this today, how things change.
Agreed. I would say ditto to everything you said, Amy. And I also love that he made mention of the year. And I'm just curious if we had a conversation with him, which maybe we will at some point in this book study, what he would add to the book, now it being a little bit beyond the time that he wrote this book, other insights that he'd be willing to share, because ChatGPT and some of those tools were so much in their infancy when this was written. And it is kind of this moving target when it comes to AI tools. And there's just, I appreciate how real and authentic he is the entire time he's writing. Like, he truly has that teacher voice and perspective, and talking about, like, this is exciting, but it's also concerning, but this is going to save me so much time. But then what about my students? And they're going to be using this for their assignments. But what about AI detectors? Like, he really does run through this spiral of emotions that you have when you discover these tools for the first time and you use them and you tinker and you see the potential, but also some of the things that stump you and make you realize, I am going to have to change the way things are in my classroom. And what does this mean for these future students?
I love that. I was thinking about, I'm in my 20th year of education. I went back to school to be a teacher. And when he mentioned this idea of, educational practices, but then technology specifically, and said, we overestimate what technology will be able to do in 5 years, but we also underestimate what it'll be able to do in 20. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got a 12-year-old at home. What will life look like? A lot of us are thinking about next year or in 2-3 years, but what will life look like for him when he is post high school, when he is, crossing from that teenage world into the 20s? Like, what will that look like for him? And it's just so fascinating to see and to be reminded of that.
Yeah. One of the things I really appreciate about Matt, you mentioned his authenticity. Well, he was a classroom teacher for many years, and then he went full-time into ed tech. But after he wrote this book, he went back into the classroom for a semester. And so he got to try out a lot of these things. And I think that might be something that he would include next, is that perspective of, okay, I've shared these, I've talked about these. Now I've really had a chance to try them out with students. So I'm interested in, how he would answer that question about what he would add now.
Well, as he concludes chapter 1, he says, let's wrap our brains around this so we can help our students and ourselves. What do we think about chapter 2? There was so many great things about just imagining this AI integrated classroom.
Yeah, so I wrote down a couple of guided questions for myself just to keep in mind as I was reading and as we're talking today. And one of them is, what does the AI integrated classroom look like? I know what my classroom looks like now. What's it going to look like when we integrate these things? And then the other one, which I think is important to teachers, is what are the current barriers to the widespread adoption of AI in education? And what can we do as educators and administrators and people in the job to overcome these challenges? So those are kind of our 2 focus questions as we go through this stuff. Okay. Does anybody have anything that really hit them hard there in chapter 2 that they wanted to start with?
I feel like I highlighted a bunch of almost the whole chapter. I'm one of those people where I'm like, oh, yes, like stars everywhere. And then it's like, okay, what are your key points, Brenny? Because you just highlighted every single word. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah,
that's me. So chapter 2, loved every bit of it. But in particular, I put lots of stars around the section where he was talking about the traditional essay. And I think it's because instantly I was like, this makes me think of universal design for learning. And when we really sit down and we think about what is the true goal, of what we're doing that day. If the goal is to write an essay, like that's a performance type of goal. So they need to do that. But where do we have flexibility in the topic? Whereas I think a lot of the times we kind of try to combine those two things together, where we're teaching about something that maybe is a content or subject-based goal, and we also embed the means to reach the goal within that. So I think this really forces us to be more creative in how we design assignments and to think about what do we truly want our students to do, and are there lots of different ways for them to show that, and how can we elevate creativity in this age of AI, knowing that it's going to change some of our processes and how we formulate and show our work in those performance-based tasks.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the UDL aspect, because he even acknowledges in that chapter that traditional essay, there were some barriers there, right? And because it was so well worn and everybody loved it and used it, we kind of didn't look at those barriers, whether it be the physical ability to write or the ability to think but not express it through writing. And so, yeah, I'm with you 100%. I love these AI opportunities to help us rethink these traditional assignments. I was just last week at FETC in Orlando. It wasn't as warm as you think it should have been, but it was better than here. But one of the big focuses were AI chatbot conversations. And I got to go hear Eric Kurtz speak about that. And he gave a really, really good description of those chatbots and how they can be used for students. Again, changing the process for teachers. Imagine I can meet with a group of 2 or 3 students and talk about their writing or their thinking. At the same time, another group of students can be using chatbots to do the same thing. It's a true ability for the first time to clone yourself kind of in a safe environment. And he talked about 3, School AI, Magic School, and Brisk as 3 key places to have those chatbot options for them. And then I went to another session and I saw all the new opportunities through Padlet for verbal and video explanations. And
Isn't that cool?
For my money at this point, that will be our alternative to what we used to do with Flip, because there's so much there. I think 17 ways that students can interact and share what they've done. And then that brings me back to an oldie but goodie that I used to use called Exam in a Box. Once a year, I would give groups of students a box, and inside that box would be all these random things. And they would have to answer the exam question with the things in that box. They would have to build something, construct something, and explain something. There's no AI. You can't AI that, right? There's no possible way you can take that and put it into an AI large language model, and it's going to spit anything out because it's physical and it's there in front of you. So all of those things, I think, are an important part of this discussion of rethinking traditional assignments.
I agree. You know, as a former math coach, something that really struck a chord with me is that teachers are going to, when they're having conversations like this, when they're doing a book study on AI, it's almost like the starts to happen, because it's like, this is rethinking the way that I have planned and evaluated, you know, teaching and learning. And when I say teaching and learning, because a lot of times we reflect on ourselves, as we should, on how well the students performed, it's going to change everything. And that can feel overwhelming. And so I'd love to really, truly lock arms or link arms with those instructional coaches, those curriculum directors, those incredible humans that school corporations have lifted up to say, let me help you see and feel the way that you can, okay, teachers been traditionally assigning an essay. Let's walk through like these questions that Matt walked through. You know, why have we used it as an evaluative tool? Have there ever been limitations to using this essay as an evaluative tool? And you can substitute essay in for whatever the teacher was, you know, using, and really helping teachers understand it's not the essay we're trying to get rid of. It's what is the essay trying to uncover? What is it trying to reveal about the way a student has either connected or applied the information? And just like you said, that exam in a box, that could potentially give you the same, if not maybe greater, deeper insight, right? So I think about like the coaches, the administrators who I really feel like we need to be working with as important humans to model and be side by side with our teachers as we go through, as Matt said, like the next 5 years and the next 20.
Agreed. And I think just asking teachers where they are kind of in their views of AI and in that cycle can be really interesting. Like looking at the latter half of the chapter where he's talking about the Gartner hype cycle. We have professional development days in my district this year, which has been amazing. And I actually just had one last Friday, which was like perfect leading into this. Yeah, exactly. The chart there. And I am leading an AI pathway, and I have teachers, it's middle school and high school in my group, and it's a mix of every single subject, every range of years of experience in teaching. Like I have some of my former teachers that are in this pathway, which is always kind of funny when I'm like this is how I should train you how to do this, when they're like some of the teachers that taught me most of the things that I know. And it's really interesting to talk to them and say, like, what do you think? And just seeing the progression of our first meeting into our second one. I had a group of ELA teachers during this first meeting when I think they picked up the pathway because they were just curious about it, but they were a little worried because they saw this as a challenge to the essays that they do in their class, and they have to teach students how to write. But the conversations I had with them on Friday were just so enlightening, and hearing them talk about, we're talking about our writing in our classes so much more now. And the students were talking through why we picked the words that we did and how ChatGPT uses phrases differently than maybe what we would when we write. And it was wonderful to hear them kind of go past that initial level of the hype cycle where there's like fear and worry and like throwing all of your teaching plans away, to now they're embracing it and they're seeing the potential. And they talked about how it's improved some of their practices, but also challenged them to think things differently.
Oh, I love that. If you went to ISTE in Philadelphia, so not last summer, but the summer before, they were saying that when they were calling for presentations, that they didn't have an AI strand to connect the presentations to. But by the time the conference happened in June, pretty much 75% plus sessions were focused on AI, right? So now let's flash forward to last summer in Denver. My session that I was so grateful to be able to lead was on a readiness for teachers only. And we used this readiness roadmap that my co-presenter and I put together. And I thought, how awesome to work and hear and allow teachers to have a moment to say, like, this is where I'm at. I love that you just said that, Brenny. When I was thinking about barriers, Tim, in regards to that guiding question, mindset is something that does come up frequently. Mindset of families, mindset of teachers, mindset of our administrators, of students. And then I was trying to think of like another M word to kind of go hand in hand. It's like maybe morals, because I know that cheating has been talked about quite frequently. And is this taking away their stamina? Is this taking away their grit, their intrinsic motivation to want to learn more because they can just ask something or type something?
Yeah, I hear you. I think for me, the key to whether it be the Gartner hype cycle that Bernie mentioned or Matt's version of the AI hype cycle that he has in the book also, it's that we as coaches, we as innovators, we have to have patience with people where they are. Because you're exactly right. The first response to anything like this is conflict and panic, right? It was the same with the calculator. It was the same with the search engine, all those things that Matt mentioned in this chapter. And, so we're gonna deal with some of that. We're going to deal with that peak of inflated expectations. Like, this can do everything. Well, it can't do everything, but going to do a lot of things. And then some disillusionment. And then finally reaching that, what is called the plateau of productivity, or that ability to scale out this progress that we want our teachers to have. That's going to take patience on our part, because we're going to meet people where they are. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know that I'm ready for this, that's okay. You will be at some point. You'll see those options and those availabilities and the amazing things it can do for you as a teacher, and what it can help your students do. If you're a teacher of writing, I don't know if there's any more important skill right now than prompt writing, learning how to write prompts for something in the future. So there's a skill based involved here that people are going to need, and we need to pay attention to.
I definitely agree. And one of the things, when we were talking about working with our team and constantly, I think we talk about this a lot, but one of the neatest exercises, and Brenny, maybe you've done this with your staff, is that knowing your why to find your way. so that not only are you feeling guided and confident, but your students are too. And that to me is huge when it comes to that teaching and learning conversation, but then also introducing this, this a whole plethora now of AI tools to help guide all of that and to help them through that hype cycle, right? Like just stick with your why. Stick with your why. You'll find your way up and down through that hype cycle. Like it'll be okay. It'll be okay.
Agreed. And building off of that too, you can start small to go far. Like there's so many AI tools out there. It's not a matter of like using every single tool that's there. It's kind of figuring out which one's aligned with your why and what you're trying to accomplish. And I think sometimes I'm guilty of doing that, where I see all the things. I'm like, oh, I have to learn all these things so I can show the teachers all of the things, which honestly is just like dumping way too much content. It might overwhelm even more. So I think getting good at one of them or two of them or figuring out how it helps your mission and reaching your students is really just so important. And if you're stretched for ideas, I also love that in the book, at the end of each chapter, he kind of gives like an overview or like an AI vocab term, but then he also references the amount of chapter that really AI helped generate and then what types of things he asked the AI. So it gives you an idea of what it's good at or some ways that you could get started using these tools. And I think that helps kind of scaffold exposure to these tools and getting some practice with them. And then even prompting, like Tim had said, which really is an art and a skill that needs practice.
Yeah, I love that. I love that he says that, because to wrap up that whole discussion about what this can be, it's moving away from that discussion of whether this is cheating or not. We can have those conversations, but really using AI to lean into the important stuff like differentiation, feedback, individualized learning. And he comes, kind of to the point that application is greater than recall. So if we're using it for application, we're in the right direction. Process is more important than answers. And so he's leaning into that, and that the complex questions are more important or greater than the rote memorization. And I think that's a really good place to land when you start discussing the possibilities of AI in the classroom.
Brenny, you mentioned having teachers in your session that maybe, did you say that you've had them? And so I'm thinking about when Matt says, we've been here before and we emerged from it better. Like, remember when the calculator came in? Remember, this was my favorite, that Wikipedia and search engines follow calculator. I was like, oh my goodness. Okay. And then it goes right to like photo math and things like that. And I thought, how neat. So if you are studying this book alongside us, you're going to see the fears and what ended up happening to be able to help that mindset and to be able to help our teachers really truly identify their why and their readiness and so forth. I just thought that was so interesting. I would love to talk more about how the teachers are doing on that journey with you. I bet they love it.
It's been fun, but also enlightening. And I did call out one of them in there because he was someone who told us that like Wikipedia was the worst thing ever when I had him as a teacher, and it was all in good humor. And now he's like, okay, things change. It's still not a viable resource, but at least it has information to reference. So we've come a long way. It was fun.
I love it. It's like we were saying, like essays, calculators. It feels really hard when we're being told, like, so what you've been doing? I want you to stop, collaborate, and listen. Like, I'm gonna flip the way you think. I'm gonna really like riddle me this kind of a conversation with you. And man, that's hard. And, one of the things that I love basketball, but right now I am absolutely like all about women's basketball. I've got an athlete in my house, and I just keep thinking, I channel my inner Kara Lawson, the head coach at Duke University. That's just like, it will always get hard or harder. We have to handle hard better. And I'm like, okay, so there's that grit. There's that intrinsic motivation. Tim's like, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great spot to land for today. We will handle hard better, and that's all we can do. That's all we can ask of the people we work for and work with. So thank you all for joining us today, and we hope you've enjoyed our conversation and digging into this text. And if we could give you a couple things to think about on the way out the door, think about what examples from this chapter that you think might have the most immediate impact on the learning in your classroom, and why? How do you now, having been through this, see AI supporting teachers in their daily tasks, whether it be grading or content generation or personalized learning? And finally, how might AI improve the speed and accuracy of grading, and how can it help with more meaningful and more timely feedback for students? Because when it comes down to it, that's what it's all about right there.
Yeah.
So think about these questions and let us know if you have more. We have many more amazing discussions and idea sharing opportunities going on throughout the semester as a part of this live stream series. So be sure to join us next time as Brenny leads our discussion on Ethan Mollick's book, Co-Intelligence. We'll be looking at chapters 3 and 4. And please join us, I'm going to apologize for this ahead of time, to be our partner in CurAIM. Dad jokes are always free. Thank you so much. So catch these episodes anytime on the Keep Indiana Learning YouTube channel. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.